how has your role evolved since you started working?
Things were very, I would say, simple, right? Not very complex, right? Technologies were also like very limited in terms of there, right? But if you talk about today, right? If you see there are so many technologies.
Is it easier to build now, or was it easier to build something 10 or 20 years back?
I would say I think it's the same, right? So earlier because the choices were very limited, right? Now there are a lot of choices.
Do you think engineers are overcomplicating things these days?
It happens, right? It happens, right? Because if you talk about today's generation wants to grow very fast. They want to learn a lot of things, right? And like people look at those opportunities, right, where they can learn a lot.
Do you still code?
No, I don't code, right? But at least I try to make myself involved into reviews, code reviews, design reviews, low-level designs, high-level design.
First time you laid off someone versus if you're doing that now, how has it changed for you?
Laying off someone is not easy, right? Because you're playing with someone's job, career, right? But at the end, like obviously it's performance management, right? It's part of the performance.
Welcome to another episode of our podcast Tech with Sukant. Today we have Amardeep. So welcome Amardeep, again to our podcast. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you, Sukant, for the opportunity.
So Amardeep, what do you think? How has your role evolved since you started working? I think it has been around roughly 20 years now.
Yeah.
Right? So what has changed in those 20 years?
I think, see, if I talk about what has changed like in the last 20 years, right? So if I go back, right, just back to the 20 years ago, right? That time even internet was evolving, right? A lot of digital transformation was happening at that point of time, right? So there was a, like, in terms of technology, right, what we were doing at that 20 years back, right, whatever we were doing, very very basic things, right? Things were very, I would say, simple, right? Not very complex, right? Technologies were also like very limited in terms of there, right? But if you talk about today, right, if you see there are so many technologies. We are talking about generative AI, we're talking about AI, we talk about machine learning, we're talking about so many things which has come, right? So what was there 20 years back and what is today has changed a lot, right? And even if you talk about like every couple of years, technology is changing very fast,
Right.
right?
So I think it is becoming unpredictable now. We really don't know what will happen in next few months.
Definitely, right? So I think the way things are happening, if you see like in terms of the main core thing which is happening is about in terms of generative AI. So right now, how it is going to shape, what will be the impact in the upcoming years, we don't know,
Right.
But obviously there is going to be focus. People need to upskill themselves. People need to change the way they are working. So there is a lot of changes required at this point of time.
What kind of change?
I think primarily is upskilling them, right? The way people do work now, right, will have to change, right? So just take an example of AI, right? At this point of time, people have to adopt themselves of using AI tools, right? It's like, first of all, what tools to use, when to use, how to use, right? That people have to choose, right? So primarily, for example, it has people who to choose, like people who are going to use AI, right? They are going to continue, right? People who may not use AI, they may struggle, right? And they have to change themselves, right? And like, like not only AI, right? So in future we don't know what new technologies would come, right? So we're talking about agentic AI coming in this. Like people have to start learning all those technologies and adopt themselves as like the as per the pace of the market.
What I strongly think that if we talk about developers specifically, so developers who are, let's say, 1x with AI, they'll probably become 0.5x or 0.1x, because I have personally seen they really don't know how to use AI to their advantage. And probably 10x engineers will become 15x, 20x, because they already know what they have to do. What do you think about this?
See, it is not the first time when this kind of transformation is happening. If you look back in the past, right, there has been a lot of transformation which has happened, right? Just to take an example, calculator, right? So when calculator came, people felt like, now what will happen, right? So we can do simple calculation using a calculator. Then computers came in, right? Then there are a lot of new other technologies came in, right? and every time there is something just changed, a little disruption has happened, right?
Right.
And this is what is happening right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think in some point of time people will understand, things will get stabilized, right? People will learn, people will adapt to it, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think this is just a phase of this transformation which is happening, right? And this will continue. It is not just like things get stabilized now, right? People, things would get stabilized, after a couple of years something new would come, right? Again some little disruption would happen, right?
Right.
Things will get disturbed, so people will have to learn and basically stabilize themselves based on what's happening.
So you have you seen companies, how are they using AI, and how are they hiring less, or is the same engineer able to deliver more, no more story points in a given time frame?
Hmm.
So how are you using, how are you seeing this impacting people or companies in real life?
See, right now, if I see, I think we are into a learning mode, right,
Hmm.
at this point of time. Right? Everybody is learning how to use AI, right? And there are different roles, and every role has to actually adopt AI, right?
Hmm.
Let's talk about first of all developer, right? So how AI can help developers, right? So for example, writing code, right? Debugging, documentation, writing test cases, right? There are so many use cases which actually AI can help developer, and this is what now companies are pushing or asking developers to start adopting these tools so
Hmm.
that they can help them, right, to increase their productivity, right? At the end, AI can provide you multiple solutions, but at the end, it's the user or developer who has to choose which one is right, right?
Right.
Which one I have to choose. So that will always be there. But obviously, the productivity would change, right? Would improve, right?
Have you seen this changing now? Is
Yes,
it
I'm
changing?
seeing. Yes, I'm seeing it. At least in my current organization, things are changing, right? Even like for example, this we're just talking about the developers, but if
Hmm.
we talk about the other roles, right? For example, product managers, right? Documentation, summarizing the documentation, writing PRDs, right? Designing, ideation, right? Now they all can do through these AIs, right? But I
Hmm.
think still every role and every people are still learning, right? And I think it
Right.
will take some time for people to learn and adopt these things, right? I maybe roughly if I have to say some like maybe a year time, right? When people will learn all those things, people will stabilize, and then like uh, the way people are doing this work will change, right?
Hmm.
uh, Things would definitely will become more faster, right? The kind of work what we are doing will obviously increase, right? So 2x definitely.
Let's say if you build a product today,
Hmm.
right? So what will be your choice of tech stack? What will you use?
I think it's not about like which tech to choose, right? I think if you talk about any tech stack, right? There are multiple tech stack,
I
right?
mean, what do you think is the fastest way to build a MVP today without
Hmm.
worrying too much about scale, too much about concurrency, etc., etc.
Hmm.
Right? Just to get a PMF, what do you think is the right tech stack to go for it?
Okay, so for example, let's say I think it depends on business use cases, right? If I could talk about like for example, when you say tech stack, right, the multiple things which comes into picture. For example, one is the programming language, right? So generally, if I would say like Java is one of the mostly used programming language,
Hmm.
right? If I talk about the databases, right? So there are multiple choices. There is a SQL database, there is a NoSQL databases, right? Again, it's the choice and how fast you want to go as per the business need. You can decide, right? Simplest way is you just go with a NoSQL database, and you can create your basically whatever you want to create, right?
Hmm.
Then there are multiple technologies, for example, queuing, right? Caching, cloud versus non-cloud infrastructure. It totally depends on business to business use cases, right? And how fast you want to build, how simple you want to build, right? Based on that, I think you can decide in terms of what tech stack you want to choose.
Is it easier to build now? Or was it easier to build something 10 or 20 years back?
I would say I think it's the same, right? So earlier because the choices were very limited, right? In terms of technology, people used to build that, right?
Hmm.
Now there are a lot of choices, right? And obviously because there are a lot of choices, the complexity has also got increased, right?
Hmm.
People talk about multiple technologies. People want to use multiple technologies, whatever they are building, right? And I think it is very important to keep things simple from the start rather than making it complex, right? And because now there are a lot of technologies and people want to basically use all those technologies, people make it complex since the start, right? So I think it is very important whenever you're building, right? Try to keep things very simple to start with, right? And then evolve based on the business needs.
Do you think engineers are overcomplicating things these days, with the paradox of choices they have,
Hmm.
right? So I think there are n number of solutions for everything.
Hmm.
And sometimes what happens is, people use certain technology or certain tech stack to fulfill their personal aspirations as well.
Hmm.
So do you see that happening?
Yes, I do see, right? It happens, right? It happens, right? Because if you talk about today's generation,
Hmm.
first of all, today's generation wants to grow very fast. They want to learn a lot of things, right? And like people look at those opportunities, right, where they can learn a lot, right?
Hmm.
And because of which, right, so wherever things are not maybe needed, right, developers try to adopt that primarily
Hmm.
because they want to learn that, right? And that's why the things becomes more complex, and that's why there's a role of a leader and architect to make sure that like the right technologies are being used, right, and they're not being made very complex, right?
How do you, ensure that your team
Hmm.
doesn't over engineer whatever they are building?
Hmm. So I think it is very important for a leader to align their teams with the business alignment, right?
Hmm.
First of all, your team needs to know what is the business goal, what is the team goal, right? What are we building, why are we building, that clarity has to be there. So we have to be very transparent with the team in terms
Hmm.
of what we are building and what is the impact we are looking at, right? And because of that, like if they have the clarity, right, then basically what generally we do is basically first of all we do a high level design, right, in
Hmm.
terms of what we want to build and how do we want to build, right? And we get it reviewed with multiple people, right, senior people, in terms of how are we building, what are we building, right? So that like there is an alignment there, and then we basically involve the entire team so that like they can get started on it and they follow what the design we have created for the entire team, right? And we do not overcomplicate it. Like primarily like, we do POCs, we do experimentation, right? Generally we ask our teams to come up with like data driven, be more data driven, and come with data in terms of if we want to use any like any other technologies, why do we want to choose that, right? What are the other data points to prove that, right? That makes it more simpler in terms of deciding if you go more data
Hmm.
driven.
Okay. In India, typically we have seen, people are more leaning towards people management role,
Hmm.
right? Everybody wants to become a manager. Compared to West, where there is no such inclination towards people management. People typically try to choose what really suits them.
Hmm.
So why is so, and how do you align your team for that? If someone says they want to become a manager, but you
Hmm.
can clearly see they're not ready to be a manager, or they
Hmm.
do not have what it takes to be a manager,
Hmm.
but they are an amazing individual contributor.
Hmm.
So how do you align them?
See, one is I think it's a choice, people choice, right? So in India, generally, what people see that like people manager roles are more, right, and this growth is which is more faster, right? So I think it's more prevalent in India, right? That like people see people manager role as more exciting, as
More power with
more
associated
power,
with that.
right. I think, and that is why. But I
Yeah.
think now things are changing, right?
Hmm.
And this is what every person is not a people leader, right?
Right.
Every person is not maybe a very good strong in the technical skills, right? And that is where I think gap analysis needs to be done, where the person is strong, right? That assessment needs to be done, right? And then the lead as a leader, I think it is very important to do that gap analysis and do that assessment where that person good is, right? So for example, if any person is good in the people management role, right, then maybe he or she should be given similar kind of roles and responsibilities so that he can grow there. If we find somebody who can be more strong in the tech side, right, so then like he should be given some roles and responsibility into that, right? And we have to basically give them a clarity in terms of that, like what we as a leader see, and we see that you can be more successful in this role rather than being successful in a different role.
But how many times do they actually agree with you, and how many times they probably resign and pursue what they
No,
think is right
at
for
least
them?
I have not seen people resigning because
Okay.
of this, right? People do take the feedback and they do try, right? There are some people who still say, no, I want to try this, so we give them opportunity, right? And obviously, like it's also learning for us, right? So when you give a chance, right, and they prove themselves, right?
Correct.
then definitely
At end of the day, both the sides, it's human,
hmm,
who are dealing with each other. So
hmm,
either one can be wrong or right.
right, right, right.
Right. So yeah, people typically say, that top product companies, even managers or engineering leaders,
Hmm,
they are very hands-on engineers.
hmm.
Is that true?
I would say it's a mix, right?
Okay.
You will find a lot of leaders who are balanced in both tech and people side. There would be few leaders who would be like maybe very strong on the tech side, but may not be on a very strong on the people side, right? So you will find all different kind of people in the industry, all leaders. But I think it is very important for any leader right now has to be balanced, right? He has to
Mm-hmm.
be a good tech leader. He has to be a good people leader, right? He cannot be just on the one side, right? Because obviously you need to balance out both the side, right? You are going to first of all at the end, like, you're managing people, right? So you have to deal with people,
Correct.
right?
Right.
And then obviously because you are working something on the tech side also, then you need to also have that depth understanding, so that you can actually unblock your teams, you can guide your team, and you can guide and unblock your team only when you have that tech depth and tech knowledge, right? Whereas as I mentioned, like, whatever you do at the end, you're working with people, you have to deal the
Correct.
people, right? So you have, like, at the end, like, they're human beings, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that people skill also needs to be there. So it has to be very important that, like, obviously
Have a right balance
right
of both.
balance between both.
Do you still code?
No, I don't code, right? But at least I try to make myself involved into reviews, code reviews, design reviews, low level designs, high level design, right? My role doesn't require to code. That's why maybe I think the last when I coded, I think around 4 or 5 years back, right?
Okay.
And I used to be very active coder,
Hmm.
right? For almost like 15 years I coded, right? So even then I was at a senior roles, but
So what made you move to people management? Do you regret this? Like
no,
you
I
should have
don't.
stayed in IC as an IC.
No, no, no. I think. See, naturally, if I see, right. So naturally, I'm a people person, right?
Hmm.
And at one point of time, right. So I basically felt that okay, I can be more good in this role as compared to the IC role, and I think this is something which I also got feedback from my leaders, from my managers, right? That okay, you are a good people person, right? So you gel up very well with people. You help them to grow. You give the right feedback, right? So that's why I think I realized at one point of time that okay, I can be a good people manager, and I requested my boss in my previous organization that I should be given that role, and actually he gave me that role, right? I tried, and I think I was doing well, and I think kept learning about this, right? And I think naturally also I feel that okay, this collaborative leadership comes to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm more in terms of collaborative. I work very closely with the people, right? Help them in their growth path, right? Work as a team, creating that culture, right? Ownership. So that comes naturally to me, and I feel that okay, I'm good at that part, right? And
So
I
what's the
don't feel.
bad part about people management when you felt कि यार IC ही रह जाता,
Hmm,
people management नहीं करना ही नहीं था.
hmm,
कभी कभी you feel that when you are dealing with people,
hmm,
so lot of things are involved. So
hmm.
कभी ऐसा you
Obviously,
felt?
see, there are always pros and cons of both the sides, either
Yeah.
tech or the people side, right? If you talk about the people side, right? So there are some challenges as well, right? So at the end, like, you are managing different kind of people,
Hmm.
right? They're not similar kind of people. Every have their own style of working, right? So for just taking one very simple example, like when you have to do some tough conversation with any person, right? You have to give some tough feedback, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy, right?
Right.
Because it mentally impacts the person sitting in front of you, right? So how to give that feedback so that like he also understands, right? And things don't disrupt too much, right? So as a human being, it's very important, right? That okay, you understand his mental and the way you pass that feedback to him, right? This is just one example, right? And that point of time, right, that's not easy for any person, right?
Mm-hmm.
That point of time, maybe a lot of people will, okay, why I'm a manager, right? Maybe I should have
Right.
been at an IC
Nobody
role,
likes their
right?
managers.
Right.
So
Right.
plus you are not liked by most of your teammates.
This is one example. Second is, like, for example, conflict management, right?
Yeah.
When there are a lot of people are working, there definitely there will be some conflicts, there will be different opinions, right? So how to deal those conflicts, how to basically resolve those conflicts across different teams, individuals, teams, different teams, different groups, right? These are all not easy conversations, right? And that makes more difficult and challenging.
When was the first time you laid off someone? Which year?
Paid off, I think, every year I think we do,
When was the
right?
first time?
First time,
Yeah,
first time generally directly I laid off sometime I think in 2016.
it has been roughly 10 years since then.
Yeah.
So first time you laid off someone
Hmm.
versus if you're doing that now,
Hmm.
how how has it changed for you?
I think, see, one, definitely laying off someone like last 10 years. And obviously, it is not like the first person when I laid off was
I'm
someone.
sure now you are used to it, so it's
See,
more
obviously,
mechanical in
as a
nature.
no, I would say, like, at the end, like, I'm also a human being person,
Mhm.
is like, so laying off someone is not easy, right? Because you're playing with someone's job, career, right? But at the end, like, obviously, it's performance management, right? It's part of the performance manager. Like, if there is some expectations from that person, right, which he or she should be doing it, right? And if you're not doing that, right, obviously, there would be some impact to your performance, to the
Right.
team performance, to the company
So
performance.
performance is the top reason why people are typically laid off.
There are two reasons primarily.
Mhm.
One is your performance, and secondly, obviously, there's sometimes in terms of behavior, right?
Yeah,
You may be a good person in terms of your work, but like your behavior is such that, right,
culturally not aligned.
culturally not aligning with the company,
Mhm.
you're creating more problem for other people in the team, right?
Mhm.
Which is actually impacting team's culture, right? Then at point of time you had to take all those calls that it's not
Mhm.
working, maybe, which is
Have you
impacting.
regretted firing someone?
Hmm?
Have you regretted firing
Every
someone?
time, right? See, whenever you're firing someone, as I mentioned, right, so it impacts, right? It's not easy things for a
Mhm.
manager, right? You feel bad about it, right? But I think, as a manager, as a leader, you have to take some tough
Mhm.
decisions, right? Which is right for that person, for right for the team, and right for the company as well, right? So
Right.
you have to do those things.
What does a day of a leader looks like in top order companies, when people typically are not able to understand and make sense of what they actually do?
Hmm.
If you can share something on that, what does your day look like?
See, I think I would say, every day is very, very different, right?
Okay.
At least for me, right? But obviously, there are few things which is common across, which I can talk about. Like, what are the common things generally I do in the
Mm-hmm.
week, and how do I won't say a day, but maybe like a week, for example. How do I plan my week, right?
Right.
So, for example, whenever I'm planning for a week, right, at the start of the week, generally I say, look, okay, what are the other things which I need to take care in the entire week, right? And then primarily I basically bucketize them, right? So, for example, which are the most important things which definitely needs my presence and involvement, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like my decision is required in that things, right? So that becomes a critical piece wherein I make sure that, like, I'm available for those things, right? Second is, like, for example, important, maybe not fully, I'm not fully required, right? But my presence is there, is required, but I'm not the decision maker in that thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is something, another thing. There are other things maybe which is more for an information, which I need to have the information, but I may not be required. That's only for my
Right.
information, right? So generally what I plan, or maybe I divide my week, is primarily, it's a mix of a lot of things, right? So for example, I'm involved in a lot of things. One is reviews, for example, right? So what is the health of the projects which I'm working on, or my other
Mm-hmm.
teams are working on, right? Are they on track or not, right? Are there any risks which going on wherein the team needs my help or support to unblock them, right? That is one category. Second is primarily, for example, there's another category because I'm involved a lot into hiring. I'm
Mm-hmm.
taking a lot of interviews, right?
Okay.
So I need to get involved. So basically, I at least generally take like 3 to 4 interviews in a week at least,
Okay.
right? And then there's a debriefs happen, right? So with the panel, right? There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of time goes. So there's a second bucket. Third bucket, maybe you can talk about from the technical standpoint of view, right? So whatever we're building, right? Are we designing it well, right? Is like whatever we have designed, right? Is it going as per the architecture what we decided, right? So all the from a technical side point of view. Then
Mm-hmm.
there are different aspects of from people aspect, right? For example, one-on-ones, regular one-on-ones, right? Regular reviews, for example, operational reviews. There, or maybe a project reviews there, right? There are different kind of review generally which has happened. So there are multiple things which I need to do in a week, right? And not every day is same, right? It may vary. There could be a day which is full of like just interviews, right? There could be a day which is just full of reviews, right?
Okay.
So generally I block my, for example, in a week, like 1 or 2 days I just block for one-on-ones, wherein I meet every member of my, not every member, but at least my direct reports, I meet them every week. And basically I also have some office hours when anybody from my team wants to meet me and talk to me, so that they can talk to me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you have, you have worked with Naukri, Shine,
Hmm.
Indian Express, right? So I think Naukri is a very strongly product-driven company
Hmm.
compared to Indian Express. I might be wrong, which I think is, more on digital transformation and tech enabled.
Hmm.
So how do you differentiate between these two? One that is completely product driven, and one which is tech enabled, not driven. So how does it, how does the people, what differentiates them in terms of people, in terms of tech, in
Hmm.
terms of culture, and what do you like more?
Okay, I think when I joined Indian Express, to be very honest, I felt okay. I have come to a different world altogether,
Hmm.
right? It
I'm
it
sure.
was not typical tech
Right,
team, right?
right.
It was more editorial driven rather than being a tech driven
Correct, right.
organization, right? And when I joined Indian Express, right, so primarily main goal for me was to bring the digital transformation within that organization, because at that point of time, Indian Express also felt and realized that like they need to focus more on digital rather than like typical physical newspaper,
Hmm.
right? And wherein like if you talk about such media organization, they don't have any product, right?
Right.
uh, they are news websites where
And I
people,
think most of their stuff is outsourced as well. They hardly do things in house.
I think it depends on company to company. Obviously there are a lot of outsource we use, like at least these media organization primarily use a lot of outsourced product or services, right?
Right.
But the time when I joined Indian Express, obviously there was a lot of work was supposed to be done, right?
Hmm.
Even the basic fundamentals were not there, right? So I had to work on those to basically calling out that and bringing out the tech company, right? So at that point of time, I would say like not a fully tech organization, right? Though there were basic stuff which was there, right?
Hmm.
Like news websites were there, Indian Express, Financial Express, Lok Satta, Jan Satta, they all were there, right? But the tech stack was very, very basic, minimal, plain vanilla, right?
Hmm.
And at that point of time, there was a lot of tech which was needed. The
Yeah.
idea was to build a lot of new other products, so that there could be additional revenue stream for the organization, right? Um, Second, I would say like if you talk about comparing with any product, right, wherein you are building product, right?
Right. Right.
Whereas at Indian Express, it's not product, right?
Hmm.
It's primarily content, right? And if you talk about the revenue source for this organization, that primarily comes from
Advertisement and all.
advertisements, right? And these is the traffic source is primarily Google, right?
Right.
So the more the traffic you get from Google, primarily there are like two kinds of traffic sources. One is like loyal people who are actually, let's say for example, I want to go and read only from Indian Express,
Hmm.
or I only want to go and read from Times of India, right?
Right.
That one kind of people. They are like from like you generally go and Google, okay, I
But I
want.
think that must be quite low, right? The direct users versus indirect or referral users.
I think it depends company to company, right? It's a
Okay.
brand, right? But at least what I have seen, majority the traffic source is Google, right? Uh, the first link people see and they click on. That's why
Right.
there's a lot of SEO work is also required. How
Hmm.
do you rank better on Google, right? So, for example, if there's a news, let's say you want to go and read about Israel war, right? We'll just go and just search on Google. The
Correct.
first link will come, you'll just click on it, right? Majority of the people do
Hmm.
this, right? And that's why there was a lot of basic SEO work which was required. Optimization was required from a tech side. Content optimization was required.
Right.
So it was a completely different. Whereas, and on this right side, they were more editorial driven, right? They don't understand technology much. It's very difficult for them to make them understand, like
Right.
what are we doing, why are we doing, right? So definitely there was a lot of difference between both of them. Hmm?
What do you enjoy more?
See, at the end, like, so I'm solving customer problem, right? I'm building some product for them, right? So anything which I am building which is helping
Very
users.
diplomatic.
Huh? See, as a,
No, fair enough.
right, see, as
Yeah.
a tech, what do we want to like? We are
Love
solving some
solving
tech
problems,
problems, right?
right? As long as
Domain
problems,
could be different.
right,
The difference is only domain, right?
right.
So, for example, in the organization where I have worked on, like Naukri is primarily on the job side.
Hmm.
This is also a tech organization, but it's more on a media, right? It's content consumption,
Right,
right?
right, right.
Whereas if I talk about my current organization, it's about more of a e-commerce platform, right? So
Hmm.
all of them are different, but at the end, tech is there. I'm solving tech problems,
Correct.
right? So which is there.
So at Naukri, so typically, if you look at a lot of developers, they don't understand companies like Naukri. They already have a solid product in place.
Hmm.
What are they doing? Why so many engineers are there? Why so many product managers are there? And what
Hmm.
actually are they doing on a day-to-day basis?
Obviously, there's a lot of work which keeps happening, right? So obviously I left Naukri almost like it's now almost like I guess 8 years since
Yeah.
I left Naukri, right? But products are like product development is a continuous process, and you
Hmm.
need to keep building those product based on the customer needs, right? It doesn't mean that okay, you have built that product and you don't need any work there, right?
Right.
Based because customer needs will also keep changing, and based on those customer needs you have to basically evolve your product, you have to improve your product, right? So right now, for example, if I, as much as I know, right, so there's a lot of focus and emphasis on the AI part, right? How do I, is like, for example, like very example is relevance of the search, right? How do I give more relevant results to both job seekers and recruiters?
Hmm.
So for example, let's say if as a recruiter I'm coming to a platform and I'm searching for candidates, right? I may get like for some thousands of resumes. I'm
Right.
not I am It's very difficult for me to go and look at all those thousand resumes. At the end, what I want the most relevant resumes, right? So using, I understand what the recruiter is looking for, right? Based on that, can I recommend the top 10 or top n number
Hmm.
of profiles, so that he don't have to go and look back all the thousand
Right.
resumes,
Right.
right? So relevance improvement, personalization, understanding the need of the recruiter or a job seeker, right? And there could be a lot of things which comes into play. For example, his location preference, right? Maybe for industry preference, right? So
Hmm.
there's, for example, there's a recruiter who's sitting in, let's say, Ahmedabad, for example, right? And his mostly of the searches are that okay, you mostly look at the candidates who are near Ahmedabad, right?
Right.
So if I have that data, I can understand that okay, he's, as a recruiter, he mostly look for the candidates who are close by to Ahmedabad, which means I can refine my results based on his previous
Hmm.
history, right, of the searches, and give them the most relevant results, right?
There has been quite a debate around 40 hours, 80 hours, 100 hours work week. What is your take on that? And how much hours do you typically put in?
Okay. I think it's a very real question, I would say, which is really right now getting discussed. And to be very honest, right? So I think I work more than 80 hours, right?
Okay.
Uh, but it is not that like okay, it's there is some pressure on
It's your
me.
choice.
It's my choice, definitely, right? So I enjoy my work, right? I have a high sense of ownership, right? And
Hmm.
primarily because of that, I work a lot, right? But I work a lot because I enjoy it, right? There is no
Hmm.
pressure, right? There is no obligation that okay,
Right.
I have to work on it.
If you're working so much, there will never be pressure. You're already doing more than enough.
But I'm enjoying my work,
Yes,
right?
right, right,
That's why I
exactly.
think
Hmm.
the most important part is it's not about like 9 to 5 or X number of hours you work. It's about, are you enjoying your work or not, right?
Hmm.
If you are enjoying your work, you won't count the number of hours, right?
Right.
Right. So that is very very important, right? And that at least I have said this to my team as well, like okay, I'm not setting this expectation that okay, I'm expect the same from you, right? Everybody has a different style of working, right? They have their personal life, right? So I want to give
Yeah.
them a freedom that okay, they choose how many number of hours they want
So
to work.
tell me one thing. Do you think it's possible to climb the tech leadership or, being successful in any field
Hmm.
by just putting in, time boxing the number of hours you are putting in? Is it
Hmm.
possible to get there?
See, I don't think so. Like we can just time box the hours, right?
Hmm.
If you time box the hours, it is very difficult to basically, because see, it's not about the work, the kind of work which we are doing, right? At this point of time requires a lot of thoughts. right? Ideation, brainstorming, discussions, right? And for this you cannot time box anything, okay, that
Right.
like if you want something better or good, right? You cannot say, okay, I need this solution in like X hours, right? Then obviously the like if you time box, right,
Hmm.
then the work quality will also be in that way, okay, I need to just complete this thing in X number of hours, right? I won't think of any innovation, I won't think
Right.
of, right, I will just do the basic work and complete it, right? So I think it's very difficult to time boxing, and we should not time box anything, right? At the end, like if
Right.
you want some better solutions, we need to be very flexible.
You need to have that passion, that
Yes,
madness
yes,
to do
yes,
something.
yeah.
Being on your toes almost always, being in the firefighting mode always.
Hmm.
Uh, how does it impact your personal life, and how do you keep a balance between personal and profession? How do you draw that line?
Okay. See, as I mentioned, right? So I think I work a lot, right? And I work a lot because I enjoy. I have a passion. I have a sense of ownership, right? And at the end, like if you're enjoying your work, right? If you're working and enjoying working with your team, you're enjoying the kind of problem you're solving, right? So which means if I'm happy at work, right, I'll be happy at home,
Mhm.
and it's a vice versa, right? If I'm happy at home, I'll be happy at work as well,
Right.
right? So I think I have at least been able to create that balance between both tech and between both work and family, that okay,
Hmm.
how much do I need to invest or work on the work side, so that at least I am able to give the right time to my family as well, right? And they should not feel that okay, I'm just working and not giving the time, right? At least I've been able to create that balance, right? So for example, weekends generally I keep completely for my
Right.
family, right? Even like for example on the weekdays when I'm working, right, I try to have some time so that I can give that time to my kids, right, help them in their studies, take them some out time to the park and like on some sports, right? At least obviously my days are long because starts
Yeah.
early morning until late night, we have a lot of meetings, but in between I do take some breaks so
Hmm.
that I can give the
Of
time to my
course.
family. And I think everybody has to have their own in terms of a balance, right? How when do the person wants to take that break, right? That
Right.
each and every leader has to, like, at least I've been so far I've been able to create that balance between both work and family.
So, what are your aspirations? Do you think you are successful?
Okay, so for everybody, that definition of success is very different, right?
Right.
So far I would say yes, I have been successful, right? At least I, as I mentioned, like at least so far I've enjoyed whatever I've done.
Hmm.
I'm happy whatever I've built, right? I'm happy that okay, as a leader, one thing which I consider is that a good leader is one actually who is able to grow other leaders, right?
Right.
So at least I've been able to grow a lot of leaders, right? Grow a lot of people, make them more better, right? Whatever I have built, I have been able to make them better, right? So at the end, like, so yes, if I consider all those things, I would consider as my successful person, because I've been able to achieve what I've been doing, right? And I've been able to improve things.
And do you plan to retire anytime soon?
No, not soon.
So what is it, कि ये हो जाएगा, इतना कर लूंगा मैं, this is what I want to achieve, and
See,
that's when I'll stop, or you don't intend to stop at all?
at this point of time, I have not thought about of and no
Okay.
intent of stopping. I'll just continue going.
You are enjoying the journey. You
Yes,
are
yes,
enjoying
yes, yes,
whatever you are
yes,
doing.
yes.
Tell me a little bit about your journey. So you graduated in 2005 from a
Hmm.
very, I think, humble college in
Hmm.
Dehradun,
Yeah.
right? And then you paved your way towards to Naukri, then Shine,
Hmm.
then all the top
Hmm.
companies in India.
Hmm.
So can you share some light on that?
Definitely, I think I come from a very humble family background. I
You're from Dehradun?
No, I'm not from Dehradun.
Acha.
I was born in a small town in Uttar Pradesh,
Okay.
but I have majorly stayed in two cities. One is Dehradun, and
Okay.
second is Noida.
Okay.
Okay, so I started my education. I did my graduation, post graduation, all from Dehradun.
Hmm.
Okay, so stayed there in Dehradun for around 14 years. When I started as a software developer with Naukri.com, which was my first organization in 2005, then I it is the time when I came to Noida, right? So I started with Naukri.com as my professional journey, right? So which is part of InfoEdge. Spent there around for 13, 14 years. And I think I was fortunate enough, right, that I joined that time when like internet was evolving, right,
Right.
and I was lucky that okay, I was part of Naukri.com.
I think
And
Naukri was very young back then,
yeah,
na?
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So because I joined Naukri at a very early stage, I got an opportunity to basically build a lot of product from scratch, build teams from scratch, set up processes, driving a lot of innovation, drive a lot of like basically doing a lot of ideation within that organization, taking a lot of initiatives within the organization, right. And at the end also I was able to see all the phases of Naukri, like from a very startup kind of a mode to become a mid-level organization to become an enterprise level organization,
Right.
right. And because I think whatever I am today, I think a lot of things come from Naukri. Majority of my learnings is from
Hmm.
Naukri, right. And there also, like I think I got an opportunity to work with very some great leaders from which I, like for example, just to name for example Vibhu Sharma, who was the CTO for Info Edge. I learned about like tech leadership with him, right. Hitesh Oberoi, who's the CEO of Naukri.com right now, I think I learned about like business skills, scale, developing business, building teams, building organization, right. So I learned all those like business leadership skills from Hitesh Oberoi, right.
Okay.
So overall, I think my journey with Naukri was fantastic. After Naukri, then I worked as a CTO with two organization, which was Sign and Indian Express, right? Very different from
Right.
right, which I did at Naukri.com, right? Because, and I think one was reason also because I spent a large chunk of my career at Naukri.com. I was more into a comfort zone, right?
Hmm.
And when I left Naukri, obviously it was not very easy, like not it was very
Of
easy,
course.
right. It took some time for me to basically get stabilized with
Yeah.
this organization, right. And obviously the challenges were very different. For example,
Hmm.
Indian Express was completely a different domain, so I had to do a lot of transformation on the people and the technology side in both these organizations, setting up the basic fundamentals within that organizations, right. And I think I worked there for like a couple of years, and then I moved to Amazon, right.
Yeah.
And I've been working with Amazon from last 4 years, right, and working on some large scale projects, managing multiple teams across different geographies, right. So that has been my journey so far, right. Let me know, I'm happy to go into specifics.
No, I think it was very nice. And again, I think thank you so much for being here. I think we really had a nice chat.
Thanks, Sukant. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.